Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the second session of our Entrepreneurs Forum. We're going to stick with the COVID-19 year of crisis theme for the first session before moving on to a deeper dive into some of the diversity and inclusion issues that were raised in the Davis and Gilbert panel a moment or two ago. But before we get to that, I'd like to welcome back our friends at Prosper Group. They partnered with us last year on a very lively Entrepreneurs Forum session. They're back to do the same again this year. And I'd like to introduce you to the Prosper Group Managing Partner, Alex Harbour, and he is going to introduce his panel and talk to us about momentum agencies.
Thank you, Paul. As Paul mentioned, our panel discussion today is momentum agencies, and we define momentum agencies as those agencies that grow consistently and significantly higher over time than the industry on average. And that growth primarily coming from careful management of internal growth drivers as opposed to acquisition. And so in our work with agencies, both domestically and globally, what we have found are 8 common characteristics of momentum firms, areas that they manage very well. And I'll go through them really quickly before we introduce the panel. The first is a compelling mission that attracts talent and clients to the agency. In Simon Sinek's world, it's find your why, and it's viewed as the first step to true differentiation in the marketplace. The second is a defined vision with a strategic plan on how to achieve that vision. The third is a compelling value proposition based on deep knowledge and experience in certain areas, and careful investment in strengthening that value proposition over time for long-term growth. The fourth, organizational structure that effectively sells and services the brand proposition. And in this day and age, that primarily means figuring out the delivery of integration. 5, they're believers in core methodology and process. They adopt a success as a product of design mentality. That carries over to the 6, which is culture. Big believers in formal training around their core methodologies and new offerings. And they build a leadership pipeline over time by careful staff career road mapping. 7, dedicated new business development function, typically led by a non-billable client leader with a team with little to zero client billable responsibilities. And 8, on the financial side, they understand how to manage a agency for a fair profit. Given our limited time today, we're not going to be able to hit all 8 of these. So I thought what we would do is talk about those most relevant in the age of COVID. And so with that, starting with Carrie, I'd like the panel to introduce themselves and say a little bit about their firm.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, and thank you for having me here. I'm delighted to be amongst this powerful group of women and entrepreneur leaders. Very exciting. So my name is Carrie Jones, and I'm the principal and founder of JPA Health. And a little bit about our firm is we are a health-only company. We're doing about 15.5 million in revenue this year, with 70 staff, and I'm based in our Washington, D.C. office. We have an office in Boston and London. And we, as I said, all healthcare all the time, but really our agency model is synchronized specialists who work together to bring insights, ideas, and execution for results that ultimately impress our clients.
Great, thank you. Michelle, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. Similar to Carrie's firm, Spectrum is also health and science focused. We recently, over the past, I would say 5 to 6 years, have undergone a transformation from being a firm solely focused on public relations to one that is more of an integrated marketing, communications, and media agency. So it's been quite a wild 5 to 6 years, but a fun one. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of our key learnings with you.
Great. Merve, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Hi, thank you for having me and nice to meet you all. My name is Merve Liebelt, pronounce that any way you wish. I know it's hard. I'm the European GM and the Vice President of GIN. We are an agency group based mainly out of Europe. We do have an office in New York City. However, most of our clients do like to hire us for our truly European expertise. We do a lot of pan-European campaigns for several clients. And I guess what stands out here, except our maybe European heritage and me dialing in from another time zone, is that we were born in digital. And recently Corona, we have felt very grateful to that as we go back to our true roots, which is the digital sphere.
Great. And Mallory?
That was actually a perfect segue for me, actually. So I'm glad about this order. Hi, I'm Mallory. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Small Girls PR, which is a company I started exactly 10 years ago now, when I was 21. Also started rooted in digital. It was prior to the word influencer marketing. So we called what we were doing downtown cool kid tastemaker marketing, which was a handful. It's evolved since, and so has our company. So now we really think of ourselves like an advertising agency through the lens of earned media, doing creative consumer communications. We represent challenger brands. We've taken brands like Billy, the razor company, and the dating app Hinge from launch through their acquisition years later. We also work with legacy brands like Olay and GE and recently Samsung, to really reinvent their the way they think about themselves and how they reach new and emerging audiences. So a little bit of everything, a generalist consumer creative shop.
Terrific. Well, thank you. Very, very impressive panel today. And so I'm going to start at 30,000 feet and kind of drill down on how each of your firms have grown. So with that, I think I'll go in the same order. Start with Carrie. The first area to explore is really around the mission of your agency and the importance of that to your growth. So perhaps you could share what your mission is and how that mission is sort of supported or driven your growth.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. You know, mission is really a big deal for us at JPA. All of our staff are very focused on making the world a healthier place. I think it's the reason they show up to work every day. And the way they want to do that is by improving and protecting lives. And our mission statement comes in that we invite others to join JPA on this mission. And so it's very growth focused. Really, we believe that the more people who are part of this mission, the bigger budgets we can handle, the more work we can do, and the more likelihood we have of helping people live healthier lives. So it is a mission that is tied to growth for sure.
Terrific. Michelle, you want to go next?
Sure. So our mission, similarly, it's about connecting humankind to its best health life. And this has been really important in making sure that we're bringing in the right talent and the right clients. So the talent that we attract are typically those who have a passion for the healthcare industry and helping patients. We're looking to work with clients who are doing really cool science, groundbreaking, therapeutics. And really, in the end of the day, our team is really passionate about telling really compelling science stories for our clients. And that has really helped us in terms of achieving the growth that we have in the past few years.
Great, thank you. Mallory, you want to go next?
Sure. It's interesting to hear Carrie and Michelle talk about a mission that's rooted in attracting clients and what type of field you work in, because as a generalist company, how do you connect the dots between having like a digital industrial conglomerate and then, you know, a skincare brand? So really our mission is more through the services that we offer, the philosophy of how we work, which is creatively driven communications that act like an ad agency through the lens of earned. And that's really helped us to grow, because when we're in the marketplace and we're competing against other consumer shops, what I always say is anyone should be able to do a launch. There's so many great agencies out there, and so many great agencies should be able to, you know, launch your news into the world and own that hard news. But what do you do when your brand has no news? And the way that we work in, you know, acting like an ad agency through the lens of earned is we make news when there is no news. We are creating stunts and viral moments in those times in between. And that has helped us both attract talent who are creative and looking for something a little different, and then also clients who are looking for the agency to bring them the big idea, if you will, and who can generate news even if they only have 1 or 2 new product SKUs coming out in a year.
Great, thank you. Merve, you want to go?
Sure, I'm really glad this question came up, because we actually, you know, as with a founder companies, you know, there is a lot of understanding of how a company works. And then as you grow bigger and bigger, you know, you kind of really need to code that sense of how we lead a company into words. So we really revisited our original purpose, as we call it, which I think is the same thing, just last year. And it's helped us so much during Corona, because we really went back and said, like, is this still what we stand for? And our mission or purpose, as we call it, is that we're an agency with agency, and that we believe, and this is a bit long, I know it's a mouthful, but that we believe in social responsibility and personal accountability, and understanding, embracing, utilizing the power of technology to create positive impact on society. Now, if you unpack that a little bit, it does a lot for us to find the right talent, in the sense that, for example, we are very technology driven. You need to at least have curiosity about what's going on out there, and need to be interested in developing technology, understanding it in order to work at Gin. But it usually speaks to exactly these kind of people. So you will find there's a lot of digital natives in our offices that form our communication and inform us about what's going on. Then there's a bit about personal accountability. So we believe that people should be accountable for their actions inside the office and outside of it. And that really helps us find the right people as well, because for clients and for ourselves, people are responsible for their actions. So that means they need to inform themselves and inform the clients. And in terms of positive impact, this is something that we're really, really, really proud of, and something that we really work with quite hard. And this probably comes from the fact that one of our founders comes from the political sphere. We believe there is responsibility when you talk and when you communicate and try to sway opinions or have impact on other people. You need to have an understanding and always need to check yourself whether you're acting ethically, transparently. And those are the kind of people we attract, the people that want to check themselves in these areas. And it also helps us in finding the right clients, because we're making very conscious efforts at this point in time to work with the type of clients that are good for people on the planet. So, for example, the green ecosystem is something that we're very focused on, because we believe it's not just a growth field, but that we feel we can grow with as well.
Terrific, thank you. The next sort of growth driver that I find in working with agencies that either helps at the beginning of the firm to drive growth, but ultimately when the firms begin to grow, and a momentum firm typically has to add a number of people each year, you know, not only to replace attrition, but for those new positions that need to grow, is the idea of methodology and process to kind of avoid chaos in the workplace, especially as you add new capabilities, you know, a creative department, digital project managers, content marketing capabilities. So I wonder for each of the panelists, and maybe we'll start with Michelle on this one, about the importance of methodology and process in growing the firm, and what you've at Spectrum have done to kind of address methodology and process.
Sure. So we implemented and rolled out a new, I guess I would call it a framework or a methodology. It's a take on the scientific method. It's called the Spectrumtific method. And this is how we develop and execute strategic plans. Essentially, it helps us bring together a multidisciplinary team to really think about a client's business challenges and come up with solutions. It looks at everything from a strategy first approach. And then we kind of think through the strategy, we come up with a really great creative platform, and then we think about how we execute that across the different channels that are gonna kind of move our audience. One outcome of us implementing this methodology is we recently, I'm very proud to say, we recently won 9 new business pitches in a row in the past just few months. And I'm sure that's just a great winning streak. And, you know, we'll be seeing losses also, you know, coming down the pike, but it just is a really good testament, I think, to how organizing a team around a consistent process where, you know, everyone's kind of getting together and following the same path to a new business pitch can result in a great outcome.
Terrific. Merve, you want to go next?
Sure. I think there's 2 questions in that. First of all, do you have a methodology? And second of all, how do you communicate it? Because for us, what is very important, we have basically one methodology, no matter what kind of offers we put out in the market, be C-suite or be executive reputation. We always stick to what we always do, which is basically we look at data. From data, we do analysis. From analysis, we go into insights, and from insights, we develop strategy. And no matter which of our expertise you're looking at, that's what we do. And then at the end, we always go back to number 1 and say, people do this. It's humans that are at the base of data. And when we put those 2 points together, we realize we have a path that we use for strategy. Now, what is important about this is that all the methodologies that we develop based on exactly that system, we don't like to call them our secret sauce, or it's something we do in secret, but we're 100% transparent on it. So if you go on our website or you download any of our white papers, we're always going to be very, very clear on what it is that we do, because, and everybody in this panel will know, the more you work with technology, the more obscure it seems, and it seems like we're doing something in secret, or there's something we can do that others can't. So we're very, very clear in that. What we have experienced is that communicating this methodology, like going back to the insights and going back to people, has created a lot of trust with our client. And I think that is the number 1 factor in how we actually can work with clients on a very high strategic level and in a very partnership and eye level.
Terrific, thank you. Mallory, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I've been debating while everyone's been talking which part of the business do I want to share. And I think the most fun one for me is, how do you develop a process around creativity and institutionalize coming up with world's first ideas or first mover ideas, things that have never been done before? It's hard to create a template for that, but we have tried to crack that nut. So we've actually developed creativity formulas at Small Girls. We use heuristic thinking, we create grids and templates, and every time a new person comes into the company, we teach them how to go about coming up with something that's never been done before, and also letting go of the fear, because you're like, oh, if this has never been done before, will it work? Don't worry about that yet. So it's a 2-part thing where we have everything from creativity roulette, where we'll put a bunch of things important to the brand's audience in a hat, so to speak, if you will, and a bunch of early platforms that we know that the brand will care about moving on to, and we'll mix and match and try and come up with a campaign for each, and we'll get 2-minute time limits. And then the second part of that is the emotional piece, which is letting go of the fear of trying something that's never been done before and throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Terrific, thank you. We'll end on this one with Carrie.
Yeah, I love this question because a good methodology and process, in my opinion, accomplishes 2 things. It gives the client something to remember, and they feel comfortable because it feels like a proven methodology. And the second thing it does is supports the agency's culture, because if we're all approaching things in a similar way, we all feel like we're in it together. And in today's world, having anything that supports a culture goes a long way. There's two particular methodologies that I'm particularly proud of at JPA. And one is our research and insights engine called Gretel. It's the largest database of healthcare influencers that exists, and it allows us to do precision PR and marketing by understanding influence, connections, and conversations that take place in any particular therapeutic area. So we have a process for how we dive into the Gretel data, follow those breadcrumbs of insights, and extract them in combination with our senior strategist experience to be able to capture actionable recommendations for our clients. The second methodology, which I think everybody might be particularly interested in, is our equity sequence. In healthcare, I think we all know that racism is a public health issue as well. And in today's world, we're particularly focused on making sure that our communication and marketing strategies resonate with all audiences. So for our work, we put things through what we call an equity sequence. And we worked with an expert who developed the sequence, where basically we ask questions of our campaigns and say, who does this serve? Who does this campaign serve? And who doesn't it serve? To make sure that we're hitting all audiences that we need to reach in an equitable way.
Terrific. Thank you, panel. So now we're going to get to the nitty gritty here around investments, enhancements to the value proposition over time, and how you decide to invest where you invest, how long you wait for that investment to be successful, those type of areas. I'm going to start because full disclosure, I know Spectrum pretty well. So I'm going to start on this one with Michelle.
Hey, thanks, Alex. So I'm going to take everyone on a journey of the past 6 years that we've gone through, so you can get a sense of the areas and how we're making decisions and investing. So our CEO joined the agency around 6 years ago, and when he did, Spectrum was a DC-based agency focused on traditional public relations. Most of our clients were in the biotech space. That was a lot of project-based business. And at the same time, the healthcare communications landscape has been, rapidly evolving with the rise of social and digital channels. The market dynamics have kind of created this need to translate science in a way that's been more than really ever before. So as a science-focused agency, he really saw the potential to be able to diversify the types of clients and services that Spectrum has to offer. Which ultimately was, fueled our growth. So first, what he did was he began by hiring talent that will allow Spectrum to service clients in other sectors of the healthcare industry. So he hired some key talent in the biopharma space and health tech. We also opened up offices. So we were only based in DC. We opened up offices in New York and Chicago and Atlanta. And really took a disciplined approach to organizing our client teams by those practice areas. We also, Spectrum is the lead agency in a global network called Global Health PR. So we really looked at ways of maximizing and leveraging that network, which has allowed for larger clients to kind of see the possibilities of working with us because of our global capabilities. Then we got to a point where our client roster had really diversified. We secured a number of multi-million-dollar year-over-year engagements with clients. And we started seeing a demand for different types of services. So we needed to hire, we found ourselves in a position where we needed to hire some creatives, some scientists, some planners, social and digital experts. And then we got to a point where we grew to a place where our brand, our traditional brand that we had for quite a while, wasn't really reflective of our position in the marketplace. So last year, we got to a point where we went through a rebranding exercise and we reorganized the agency under 3 core pillars. of strategy, creative, and innovation. And basically all of the different, what we call knowledge centers or teams of expertise kind of fall into those different pillars. We also move to what we call a client team approach, or we call them interwoven teams, where we have our teams are led by client relationship leaders, and they're made up of the different experts from different knowledge centers, really specific to the needs of that client, which has really helped our business grow organically, because essentially you have a group of people who are all thinking about a client's business challenges and different types of solutions for those challenges. And through all of that whole process, we are now have transformed into what's now a full service integrated marketing and communications agency that, as I mentioned before, we really function more like a strategic consultancy that's able to execute across a variety of different channels.
And I'll just add that all of that was done, I think, over a period of maybe 6 years. So very, very impressive. Mallory, you want to go next on this one?
Sure. Sorry, I was on mute. So when I mentioned earlier, when we started the company, we really saw it as an opportunity, my co-founder and I, to connect brands with rising voices on rising social platforms. And this was 2010. My co-founder and I were 2 of the first 1,000 people on Tumblr. We were on Foursquare when it was called Dodgeball. So we were very rooted in a mentality of being first movers and going onto platforms pretty quickly. And that was the service that we offered to our clients. But the interesting thing that happened was, once we would have success on a platform, once a client would start going viral and building really strong, large communities, reporters would start reaching out and asking our brands, how are you doing this? Or wanting to cover the success that they were having. So I remember one particular instance early on. The Wall Street Journal reached out to a dessert bar we were running socials for and said, hey, I see you on socials everywhere. And when I looked you up, you're a 300 square foot hole in the wall cupcake shop that people can't even really come in and sit in. So why do I see you everywhere on socials? So they kicked the interview to us. And once that happened, they were like, wow, we saw another uptick from the Wall Street Journal. And we can all sit here and say, duh. But for me at 21, I was like, oh, maybe we should start thinking more proactively rather than reactively about press. And so I made my second hire, which was someone who was much more senior than I was and experienced in more, I guess, traditional modes of PR to really build out our press practice. So that was the first piece. And then from there, we have really listened to, so that was listening to clients and what was resonating with them. But then I also started listening to our P&L. And in 2015, I started doing evaluations to see where are we sending the most money out the door and where are we having the most inefficiencies also on the operational side. And the first time I did this, we looked and saw, hey, there's a lot of consternation when we come up with these really big, great ideas, and then we don't have control over its production. And hey, also one of our biggest line items is we're outsourcing production to experiential agencies and third-party vendors. So in 2016, I went out into the marketplace and acquired an experiential shop strategically located in the West Coast. So we could then also open our doors in LA. And that was a different example. Sorry about that. There's noise happening downstairs. That was a different example of, listening to clients, listening to the P&L. And now an example from even COVID is just continuously listening to the market and marketing to the moment we live in. So when TV viewership went up, we very quickly iterated and said, hey, we're already doing broadcast influencers in our influencer marketing division. What if we build this out as a separate branch and do an entire broadcast talent program to really lean into this moment where people are at home and watching TV more than ever at a younger demo that our clients are trying to reach. So thinking about listening to clients, listening to the P&L, and listening to the marketplace to figure out where the puck is going next and quickly move there.
Terrific, thank you. Merve, you want to go next?
Yeah, I've been thinking as I've been listening to this, it's a great question. I'm wondering like which area I should talk about, but I guess I'll narrow it down to two because since we've grown, we've always heavily invested into our future, our own future. So having been born in digital and always having considered, social media and the digital sphere as being our native playground, we've always been very conscious of what we need to do there, so that we've developed our own proprietary technology from a social listening tool for executives to now just recently a public affairs tool that understands what's happening in politics. It's kind of a tool to combat fake news. So we've always been very, very strong in developing the tools that we can't buy, because we know they're needed in order to really service a world that is digitally connected. So that's nothing new. That's been for the 8 years that we've existed since day one. We've been continuously investing into that. The thing that has been really building out organically and that we're now really scaling up has been more let's call it the geographies, because as we hire more and more people, and as more and more people have come in that also used to work on client side, we understand better and better where the frustrations lie for clients that are trying to drive a pan-European strategy, let's say, because everybody wants to have key messaging, aligned positioning, but then you go into the individual markets, and many of you, you're acquainted with it in the US quite a bit, but in Europe, you can drive 100 kilometers and cross 3 countries in 6 languages and very different opinions and politics. So for us, it's quite a substantial part of our work to adapt campaigns. So what we've really worked on in the past 3 or 4 years and really, really scaling up right now is to not only have really strong national organizations like our Paris office, our Iberia office, our UK office, and our German office, but make sure but we've been dialing up our internal teams that go into these different hubs that also have certain rock stars in certain disciplines, connecting between these people, and then making sure that we translate back to our client what the best possible way is to get the most impact in for their brand in all the markets, while not deviating too far or at all from what you're trying to achieve on a general brand level. A lot of brands that work in many markets and that are launching simultaneously in many markets do make a lot of mistakes in that in the beginning, because they're trying to get a cookie cutter kind of solution for everything. And we've managed to create a mass bespoke model, so to say, for our clients. And that's something that investing into talent, investing into internal structures, and investing into developing new and really agile processes around that, something that recently has really taken a lot of our attention and resources in that direction.
Terrific, thank you. Carrie?
No surprise that this group is talking about momentum. I think there was a lot of great insights just shared. Like all of the other panelists, JPA is an integrated agency, and the trick for us was, how do you create that generalist who can pull from all of the different specialists and be able to understand and hear what the client is asking for, even if the client maybe doesn't have the right lexicon and know what they're asking for, while building out a team of specialists. And for us, the challenge has been when to pull those triggers, how to staff the account. I mean, it's a lot of the similar things that Michelle talked about. So we have invested in bringing in all kinds of specialists, as well as those generalists who know how to pull and sync them up as appropriate, from our creative team, creative directors, videographers, graphic designers, our digital strategists. We have public affairs experts. We even have a medical director, a physician, internal medicine physician as part of our staff to be able to provide that clinical expertise. And then as the panel talked about, geography is really important. So headquarters for us is in Washington, DC, which is the epicenter of the US's healthcare policy and decisions being made. We also have an office in Boston, which was strategically opened because it's the innovation hub for biotech and pharma business. And then we, 6 or 7 years ago, opened an office in London as a launching pad to do our European and global support. So I think for us, it's that synchronization of staff and also really smart geography decisions.
Great. Just follow-up question, and I'll throw this open to the panel in general. Is there a philosophy that you have when you make an investment on how long the firm will wait until there's, you know, a measurable return on that investment? I'll throw it out to any of the panelists.
I think it's an interesting question in terms of like how long you wait to see it, you know, to see an impact. When we invest in staff to, you know, to kind of build out a capability or, you know, hone in on an area of expertise, we kind of use this idea of like it's like an art and a science to figure out when do you make the hire versus when do you use a consultant, so that, you know, that ROI is seen, you know, and makes a lot of sense. So what we do is we try and use organic opportunities to build out an expertise. For example, if we have a client who's looking for medcoms, for example, and we don't have anyone on our staff who does medcoms, we'll start working with a consultant and bring her in or him to kind of work with the team and think through what does medcoms look like at Spectrum. And then once we see a real interest and a conversion into business, then we'll start making hires. And we'll, you know, we'll measure our ability to convert business organically and from a new business perspective to make sure that we're getting a return on the investment we've made with the staff. But the idea of hiring full-time versus consultant to me is just really more of an art and a science to make sure that you're getting that return.
Terrific. Anyone else want to take that one?
I think you know, we have on our end at Gen, we do develop a lot of tools. So for HR, we're pretty much, you know, we give ourselves a certain spectrum, but also define return on investment and impact on the company, not just in numbers, because many people bring in more than just, you know, turnover in that sense. But when you look at technology, I mean, who hasn't heard of, you know, the technology was great or the invention was great, but its time hadn't come. And that is something we had struggled, we struggle a bit more with if we invest a lot of time into, or a lot of resources into developing a technology. However, we've disciplined ourselves a little bit on that by taking our technology inventions outside of our agency business and making it responsible for its own P&L and even its own investment. And that way we've kind of shifted a little bit from making sure that, you know, our agency business is a bit aside from the technology development business, even though we both profit from each other immensely. And that's just because it's very hard to let go of something that you invest so much time in. So that's our discipline now.
Terrific.
I would just add that every time we've waited until we had like a book of client business to bring in that new hire, I've regretted not doing it sooner. And the reason for that is they need a little time to learn, in our case, the JPA way and how we work with each other. And they also need to get ahead of the demand to be able to grow that offering. So if your gut is telling you that now is the right time to bring them in, but you're just a little bit nervous, listen to your gut as opposed to waiting until they can hit those billable goals, because I think it will be advantageous to everyone to give them a little time.
Yeah, and I just, if you don't mind, Alex, just to add to what Carrie's saying, I think another important thing is sometimes you might bring in a person to help build out the capability and your gut is saying like, this is the time to grow it and build it. And maybe it's not quite working with that person. I think you have to ask yourself, maybe it's the wrong person versus not the right, you know, time to be building a capability, and how long do you wait before you decide maybe we need to bring someone else in to do this?
Yeah, and I think piggybacking on what Carrie and Michelle both said, I think in the past something that I've done that I've tried to course correct is sometimes, you know, Michelle gave the example of a consultant. That's definitely a way in that we do all the time. And then typically what we'll do is we'll hire the executor rather than the visionary first. So hiring the people that can like do the work, fulfill the scope, execute on it, and then waiting even longer to hire the person that will be the actual day-to-day leader or group visionary that makes everyone hum together. And in the past, I would have it be, you know, me or the managing director. And that's something that I've had to unlearn is not just investing in the people that can then do the work day one, but also who's going to set up, you know, the future 1-2 year plan that's specific to that actual practice and group and not just how it fits into the rest of the business. Another thing that we do is every senior leader who runs a team is given at, you know, the end of Q1 a revenue goal for the company, for their group, and then also a back-end tool so they can see how to you know, run profitability for their group month over month, letting them sort of be empowered to say, when can I trigger a new hire? How much will the risk be? When do I want to take that risk on during the year? So we've sort of redistributed the risk decision-making and assessment to each of the group leaders rather than it just being so centralized in company-wide leadership.
Terrific. Just on that, how elaborate, I mean, I'm assuming that your agencies have a planning process that you go through to get the feedback from the various division or practice leaders to determine what investments they feel are necessary. I'm curious about getting client feedback every year about how the programs are going and whether that client feedback is kind of added to the agency planning process. So I think this is a pretty, do you get feedback from clients and does that feed itself into your planning process, I think is the question. Kara, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, any good communications person will say that you have to talk to your clients and really listen. And for us, we do that two ways. We do a formal survey. It's a 10-question survey on client satisfaction at the end of the year. But at the beginning of the second quarter, we also have one-on-one discussions where we just call and say, how's it going? What's working? What's not working? What can we do better? And I think it's really critical not to be afraid to ask those questions of you know, give me some feedback, give me some criticism, because they might say that the staff person working on their account maybe just isn't a good personality fit. Well, we can't fix it if we don't know it. So I think it's that combination of qualitative and quantitative learnings along the way.
Right. I should preface what I said earlier is that when we do work with clients, often we'll interview the clients of our agency client. And we always find like an aha moment feedback from the client that they didn't realize that the agency did everything that the agency now does, that they're kind of stuck in time when they hired the agency as an impression of that agency, and that we uncover growth opportunities from those interviews for clients. And so that was really what I was after. So I don't know, Michelle Gross, if you want to talk about what Spectrum does.
Yeah, so we do, in addition to, you know, as Carrie mentioned, we do have regular one-on-ones with our clients just to make sure that they're, you know, they're feeling good about our teams and the work we're doing. But we do, on an annual basis, implement a Net Promoter Score survey, which essentially measures the likelihood of your clients, you know, kind of referring you to their colleagues or friends. So we have a good baseline, and then where we're going year after year and how clients are feeling about us. As part of that survey, we do ask them their familiarity with our different capabilities and services and how they're feeling about the individual, you know, kind of areas of expertise. So for example, last year when we did the survey, very few people were aware of certain capabilities that we had, and we knew that we needed to focus more on educating our clients about the fact that we do these things, which we had been doing for the past year. And then this year we just got the results back from our 2020 survey, and it looks like we've been able to move the needle in terms of their awareness of the fact that we do that kind of work. And we are noticing, growth in those areas as well. So it's been really, really helpful for us to make sure that we're kind of on track with our 5-year strategic plan. And we are able to identify those areas that we need to kind of focus on in the short term to gain our long-term vision.
And Mallory, your firm seems to be kind of on the cutting edge of things. The same question to you.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know how cutting edge this is, but I can share what we do, which is a couple of years ago, we moved to a system where we weren't just checking in weekly with each level of management on the results and the output of the work and how we were measuring against the scope and billings and all of that, but also added just temperature checks. We even have an internal color coding system to see if there's any gradient changes in the relationship. Is there anything that we need to do there, especially, for example, if our main client contact leaves and we have a new person starting, is that an opportunity for us to reintroduce our senior staff to the team, et cetera, just little things like that. Once we started putting these weekly temperature checks into play, where we're thinking about and dedicating at least 15 minutes of our check-ins just to relationship maintenance and how can we go the extra mile to help our clients look good to their bosses, we ended up noticing that starting in, I believe it was 2017 was the first year where this started happening, but I know the numbers for 2018 to 2019. From 2018 to 2019, we grew over 40%, and it was with less clients. So it was just organic growth from the clients that we already had in dominance in comparison to just adding a ton more clients. And I think that has totally to do with the trust in the relationship built and is an output of moving from assessing things quarterly to weekly.
Thank you. Merve, you want to take this as well?
Sure. So, of course, it's always important to think about new clients, but we really focus, I think, like what everybody else said too, like on our existing clients. So we do, just what Mary said, we do temperature checks. We have client surveys, client satisfaction surveys. Every one of us has actually a net promoter score in their KPI. So for us, that's like literally like we'd rather grow with our great clients across multiple disciplines and like really service their needs and what they want to achieve across various disciplines than have 10 new clients, even though we're happy to have a lot of business anyway. But one of the things that we found has been incredibly well received by our clients has been that we work with them to co-create new ideas. And also when we develop a new technology or when we talk to, leaders in the field of LinkedIn, TikTok, we connect our clients to those to potential other clients, but also to those platforms that they usually wouldn't have access to. It's actually part of our training program that we put out to our clients, which is called Gen Academy. And that has been something that, if clients is interested in thinking a little bit about this, but not, 100% sure yet what they want to do, we experiment with them. And so many of our clients are quite happy to guinea pig around in that a little bit. And that is something that's been incredibly rewarding because together we develop new ideas, and that's how we make sure that everybody stays happy in the joint relationship, because it's always inspiring.
Terrific. Thank you, panel. I think we have time for one more topic before we turn it over for questions to the audience, from the audience. And so it's kind of a twofold question, and I'll start with Carrie on this one. How important has training been for the growth of your firm? And also, as you grow and you bring new people in, what does your the integration process of people from the outside coming into the firm, how is that handled? Yeah.
Well, I think everyone on the panel will agree that professional development and training is key to growth. The world is changing and we have to change and grow with it. We dedicate 40 hours a year to professional training, and it consists of internal brown bag trainings, external trainings, conferences, and peer-to-peer. I will say it's been a bit of a challenge for some of those trainings to take effect in the COVID environment, but we're trying to adapt and use as much virtual training and new methodology as possible to be able to add to that. Alex, the second part of the question.
Integration of new people coming into the firm. I have to apologize. Somebody is mowing the lawn next door, so.
Yeah, so the integration is probably the more challenging part, but it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. What we do is we try to encourage them as much as possible to bring the best of what they've had at other experiences and other firms with them, instead of saying, please adapt to our way of doing things. So there's let us show you the JPA way we approach things, and then ask them, how can you help make it better? And be real open-minded to that evolution and change.
Terrific. Merve, you want to go next?
I'm going to be honest with you, Carrie covered all the things that we also do, more or less. Our training program has a different name. We have different building blocks, but we are very focused. We have internal headcounts just devoted to what we call the Gin Academy, and it's an internal program, but also we have keynote speakers. We do a lot of, as I already mentioned, collaborative workshops. But to get to the second part of your question, I'd like to actually say something. This is something that we're quite keen as an agency. We're international, but we really always like the hands-on approach, and we always like the personal interaction. So anybody that ever started our company always was sent to headquarters in Paris for a week to meet everybody, to kind of start working together in a way that, once you've met, and then when you pick up the phone or you go into a video conference afterwards, there's a different sense of connection. And one of the things that we are really working on right now, and that we're really struggling with as we hire, because we've been lucky enough to continue to hire even during the last 8 months of Corona, we really struggle with finding a substitute for that personal connection, that personal meetup. That we usually have at the very beginning, and that we practice at least twice a year when the whole agency comes together. And to be just fair, we just play, we just have a party. And those are two things that really drive every kind of interaction forward. And those are the things that right now are causing us to really, look into alternatives and things, and into alternatives and think about it, because so far we have not uncovered a perfect solution for that. So if anybody else on the panel has found a way to substitute that, please let me know, because we're still really actively engaging and finding solutions there.
Terrific. Thank you. Mallory?
Yeah, I guess I'll take the question you just posed and lead with that. So a big part of our company history is early on, we started taking our entire company on company-wide overseas annual retreats. And at a certain stage, when we hit, I believe it was 50 people, we said, all right, now we need to figure out how do we retool this for the size that we are. And we started shipping our whole LA office and people on the West Coast to New York for 2 days of coordinated team bonding, leadership and development, and training each year. Of course, for COVID, that would be impossible. So we recently, just a couple of weeks ago, did our first remote small summit, and we did a day and a half where we did everything coordinated together from, we used a company called Pizza Time that makes it so every single person, no matter where they are in the United States, gets a pizza within about 8 minutes of one another delivered to their home. So little things like that, where it makes it feel like you're all in the same room, even when you're not. We delivered care packages in advance that all had the same tools in it to celebrate the day. We have a culture and comms committee that's made up of individuals from every department and every level at the company on a volunteer basis each semester, who apply to be part of the program. And they created an hour and a half of award ceremonies and programming virtually for the day. There are also people who, when we onboard and train new employees, take them through what is our company culture, what's the hope and expectation of participating in our culture, and also what are our core values and how do we embody them on a day-to-day, including some case studies of client work. In addition, for onboarding, another thing that we do is I personally sit down with every group of new hires, or if there's not a group, if it's just one person, I do that as well, and take them through the company origin story and history. For example, we're bootstrapped, and I talk about how important that's been to our growth and why it makes us scrappy and how being able to maintain ownership to the point where we have has empowered us to be really flexible. So please raise your hand. We love throwing stuff against the wall. We're not beholden to other shareholders. We have flexibility here, things like that. We also have a 30, 60, 90 day from the start of someone's first hire where they come in and tell HR what surprised them the most. Is the role exactly what they thought it would be based on the interview process? And take those learnings and feedback if we need to pivot in the future or alter their role in some way. We ask them, what are the things that you know that you're already going to miss from your last job, so we can figure out how can we creatively incorporate that here, and what are the things that you already really like, so we know to double down on those things. Another thing, we do a Monday all hands where I share 3 awesome things from the week before with the whole company. So we're all on the same page of what's going well, what do we value as a team, whether you're a new employer, you've been there for a while and need a refresh, that happens every week. And we also have a Small Girls PR University, our SGPRUs, where we bring in outside professionals and also have people internally who become experts in a certain given thing, where they will do an hour-long session every month on something that interests the rest of the team so they can grow. And then at our annual small summits, we bring in outside professional leaders. This year we did Gallup Strengths Finders, we've done CBI, we've done DISC assessments, and then we use Zooms to do virtual breakout groups to then share people's strengths or work styles, and then give them little homework assignments to iterate on it from there.
Terrific. So I'm told we have a couple of minutes left. Maybe Michelle, you can answer the question, and then I'll summarize our kind of findings from the panel. And if there are questions from the audience, we'll be happy to take those.
Sure. I mean, I'll just touch on a couple of other things. I mean, I think a lot of what the other panelists have covered are things that we're implementing, and challenges as well that we're having during COVID, and making sure that new employees are being onboarded properly and keeping our entire talent base fully engaged. From a learning and development program perspective, a couple of kind of like different things that we do. So we have someone who's assigned as our Chief Learning Officer. She's solely focused on executing training programs to grow our staff in different areas of their career. And I think by having someone really dedicated to that, we've been able to really blow out our training and development program, which for us is called our Centers for Excellence. We modeled the program after a teaching hospital as a way for us to have our learning and development program really tied to our mission. So the teaching hospital includes on the job teaching and doing rounds, or coaching and mentoring, and all of the names of the programs kind of are aligned to that teaching hospital model, which I think our employees really enjoy. In terms of onboarding new staff, this is where I do think it's been really, challenging in times where we can't have those face-to-face interactions. We do have, in the first week when someone joins us, our HR team provides the new employee with an onboarding package and sets them up with meetings with key people across the organization on Zoom. Everything's done on Zoom. To make sure that we're orienting the new team member to all the different parts of our organization. And then the person gets onboarded onto their client team. So each client team leader has created kind of their own individual onboarding package for each individual client to make sure that a new employee is aware of, who works on the team, what are the standard operating procedures that happen on the team, what's the org chart, what is the product I'm working on? It really helps to get a person kind of up to speed on that client business really quickly. And then lastly, we pair each of our new employees with a buddy who they can go to for questions on their first couple of weeks. And then later on, once the person is, fully entrenched in the organization, then they will get a mentor, which is a longer term kind of mentorship with, someone who is senior to them, but in a different part of the company who they might not work with on a day-to-day basis. So those are all the things that we're doing, but it's definitely challenging. I mean, we've had a number of people who've joined our company in the past, 6 or 7 months, and it turns out it's not the right fit, and they've already left. So that I think that's been a big challenge. But overall, it's been an interesting, well, I'll say it's been an interesting 6 months.
Thank you. Thank you, panel. I'm just going to summarize really quickly because I know we're running out of time here very quickly. So what we touched upon is really the mission. It starts with the mission of the firm in terms of differentiating so you attract the right clients and talent. I think what you've heard between the lines here is a deep senior team is really important. Process, especially as you grow, in being able to have consistent, superior client services. The senior leaders get further and further away from the, kind of day-to-day client work becomes really important. Having a process, whether it's from clients or looking at spending in different new areas or using a freelancer, but having some sort of process for planning on reacting to changes in the communication landscape or the client's industry and building upon the agency value proposition is really important. Investing, and we try to work with our clients to invest ahead of the curve or be early adopters, especially when it comes to senior talent where you need to build a new revenue stream. Knowledge and experience win, so you usually need to add that senior talent with the knowledge and experience. And then with growth comes a bit of chaos if you don't have training around your core processes, and the quality of service can be inconsistent, and you begin to get revenue plateau. So training becomes really important at some point, and I would say out the gate for agencies. And with that, I guess I'll turn it back over to Paul.
Thanks, Alex. That's a really interesting roadmap for building an agency with momentum, and I think gave us a lot to think about.